This is the Neo Show, where the minds shaping tomorrow speak today. Brought to you by Neo, the browser redefining what AI can do for you.
Welcome, my friend Saket. Axel and I have been hosting this new show. One reason is we are working on this AI native browser. We are very excited. It's going to really be the new entry point for consumers before too long. But on the other hand, we wanted to have this show because it's all about AI, right? AI, how people are leveraging AI, how people are kind of developing AI native products, because that's our community is excited about. They are excited about Neo, but they are excited about AI in general. So I know Saket for many years, and he has been a startup CEO before Gen AI, right before ChatGPT era, and then his company is still running strong after ChatGPT. So I'm really curious, how's ChatGPT, or the AI, generative AI has been making a huge difference to you. That's kind of why I wanted you to come to our new show. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Howie. Great to be here
Maybe
and
just a
always
quick
great talking
intro
to
of
you.
yourself and then what your company does before we hit you with lots of AI questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Saket. I'm co-founder, CEO at Nexla. We are working on the mission to automate how we work with data and make data consumption or data use easier. And pretty excited about everything that's happening with AI, which is what AI is doing for data and what data is doing for AI.
A stupid question first. Why, dealing with data is hard. Like you started a company to sort of allow people to use data easier. Like
Yeah.
what? That's a hard problem.
Okay. The hard problem, I think, is in data has been around what we typically call as the 3 V's of data. So it's been the volume of data. There was a big challenge. There's a lot of innovation around Hadoop, Snowflake, Databricks, all of that in that realm. And then there has been the velocity of data, how to really work with high volume data, but in real time and all of that stuff. And then the third problem with data is variety. So what we saw is that variety of data is extremely broad in enterprises and companies, and it's just growing all the time. And when we think about variety, we feel like there are different systems that create data that you have to get data from, the different formats of data, the different descriptions or ways in which data is described. Just to say, for example, list of employees in a company, different companies may define it differently. And then now even more so, data is in different forms, so documents, videos, images, not just neatly organized tables. So it's a hard problem to solve. Yeah.
So what's the secret sauce to solve this, data velocity,
Yeah.
data volume, and the data variety problem? What's your secret sauce?
Yeah, so I think a lot of engineering technology challenges really are solved by taking a better, first defining the problem better and then approaching it differently. And my introduction I didn't mention, but I've been an engineer by background. Much of my engineering work was at NVIDIA, about 20 years ago. And one of the things that I learned working there was, how to create like elegant solutions to complex problems. The complex problem at NVIDIA was, a one core GPU architecture led to many GPUs that get built around that same core and then have many applications for it, right? So you deal with a lot of that. And the way we solve that is one sort of device driver which abstracts out that variety. So abstraction is a key approach to solving that sort of a challenge. And we have solved that challenge in the world of networking, where different ways packets are moving around for different applications like video or for moving files and so on. And we have solved that in a very smooth way, in such a way that we don't even notice that we sit and everything we do is sitting on top of extremely complex global networking, right? If you think about packets moving around versus data, we haven't solved that problem on data side yet, or we're still working towards that. When we think about data, it has a lot of meaning to it and all of that stuff. So the approach is take a look at that variety and abstract out the layers. So in the network layers, if you remember like the 7 layers, there are the hardware layer, there's the transmission, the packet, the TCP, IP, HTTP, those are the layers. But the very top layer, things are pretty easy. You build an app, you run it. You don't care how the rest of the things work. Every layer abstracts some part of the problem. And same thing we see in data is the connector which actually reads and writes the bits and bytes, the parsers, the schema of the data product, the retrieval of those things. And as you build the layers up, at the application layer, it should be super smooth and easy. And you say, you know what, I'm building an app, I connect to a database, I connect to the internet, I connect to an AI model, and I need to connect to some data information, or as we are talking about it, in these days, context. So the secret sauce is really in architecting that and first framing that variety is a problem, and then architecting actually to solve that.
Very interesting. So both Saket and I have been, in the computer science field for 2, 3 decades, right? And I'm pretty sure, Saket, you have heard the same thing again and again, that any computer science problem, any tough computer science problem can be solved by one technology that's called abstraction.
Yes.
So another layer of abstraction can solve, pretty much any computer science problem. That has been there for probably last what? That was true, wisdom for last half a century, I guess, right? I think if anything, it's probably, still true and then even more true. Okay, so let's switch to AI. November
Yeah.
30th, ChatGPT was, came to you. Then what's in your mind for the company? Like, what do you see it? What's the implication to the company? And then walk us through, what did the company transform or not, in the last 2.5 years or almost 3 years now, actually, believe it or not. So what happened?
No, absolutely. It's a transformative moment. Initially for all of us, it was like a consumer. We go use it and we say, wow, let's try some more. Let's ask a few more questions. Let's, stuff like that, right? And I think the one sort of aha that many of us had and I had as well was that, okay, this is actually like um, an amazing innovation, kind of that we've not seen before. We had, seen examples of, prior examples like, Enigma and whatnot, and we're like, oh, it's kind of, fake demo, and you dig deep enough and it'll break. It didn't happen, right? It really worked really well, and it got better very, very quickly as the models went from GPT 3.5 to 4, 4.0, and then parallel like Claude and Gemini, all of that stuff, right? So clearly the innovation was real. What I could understand very quickly was that one part, me as an engineer, love to build stuff, but I hate writing, especially writing like well organized emails, right? And I have a lot of ideas and you want to write stuff about it. And I could see this is a huge accelerator. So I felt like knowledge work is changing. How we do our job can change. And this can be a huge accelerator for people who know what they want out of it. I know what my blog should sound like, but it takes me like 3 days to write it. And now AI can help me get that job done faster. So what I've concluded in general from that is that if you know what you want to get done, AI can really be an enabler. So what did it mean for us? What it meant for us is that, look, one, clearly how we work with data can get faster and better. And we have seen that with software engineering. Software engineering has just, been getting revolutionized in the last 1 year. That didn't happen 3 years ago. It's happening because models have gotten better at generating code, right? So software engineering is evolving. We feel like data engineering will also evolve. Data is hard. It takes people a lot of work to get the right data and take advantage of that. So that should get easier, both in how it gets done and who does it. So that's certainly one of the things that I feel will happen. But the other thing we know very well from being in the data space is that data is a big enabler for AI. So then it is like, okay, AI can make the data work easier, but data can make the AI work better. So it's a nice virtuous cycle that we think helps for us, me, and for our startup as a company. We actually get to play on both sides of the equation. Okay, and one is the training part of it. I see some questions around that, but a huge part is the inferencing in the runtime. What information can we feed the model? And we've seen that. So there's a lot of work that we've been doing on that front as well.
So from that point of view, you are saying that there are two things. One is the impact to the productivity at the CEO level, at the knowledge worker level, at all layers. And then the second part is, because AI has impact to the data, that means your, product direction also pivoted a little bit, or what does
Yeah,
that mean? Can you give more detail?
yeah. Our product direction has pivoted in two ways. One, we felt that working with data was hard. Our mission was to make it easier from day one of the company, to make it easier for anybody who wants to use data to do it easily. We feel like everybody is better served if they can use data in their day-to-day professional lives. And we were trying to solve that problem. We felt we could solve that problem a whole lot better because of AI. So one big part that we've done is made it much easier for anybody to get to the data, be conversational, tell our system, hey, I have some data here. Can you go get it, clean it up, get it to me here and give it to me as an API? You can tell that conversationally and our engine can go build that. So one is making that job easier, right? The second part then became, hey, am I asking all these questions to AI? And then we need to stitch a lot of information together. There is a prompt, which is almost like code. I would say it's like instructions to the computer, instructions to the model. And then there's like, by the way, here is some document. Here is some historical conversation. Here is some data from my Salesforce. Here is some data from my database, stitching all of that together. So for us, that became a big part of our pivot or direction to say, we should have a system, and we already had that. We have been a data integration platform. Connecting to systems and bringing data out of that has been our bread and butter. So like, okay, this needs to just really up level. And what we have done to that front is, hey, we can use AI to actually generate more and more connectors. Okay. And I can talk about how that becomes possible, because it's a very hard problem in software engineering to build those things at scale. Having connectors to 1,000, 5,000, 20,000 different systems is not easy. So being able to generate that with AI, being able to create a knowledge layer around data, because now we can use generative capabilities to do that. So I can understand what information is actually relevant to feed to AI, and then stitching all that together, the orchestration. So all of those pieces have become areas where we strengthened our offering, where we had core offerings from day one as fundamental to what we do as a company. But AI has really helped us focus on that as a primary use case, which is to serve AI use cases. And I'll just give a quick tidbit, right? Historically, analytics was the 80-85% use of data in an enterprise. Why people needed data was analytics. Analytics is getting subsumed by AI, okay? And therefore, AI is becoming the application to serve in a way. And it has a very different pattern, which I'm happy to talk about as well.
I want you to explain a little bit more, because until that statement, data is subsumed by AI, my impression is everything you said seems to be incremental. Let me explain what's in my mind. Like, you can now add a natural language interface so that people can, query the data via natural language. But that to me is somewhat incremental, right? You can say user experience is better, but it's not like fundamentally different. The other thing is you can build more connectors faster, but that to me is also incremental, because you can, alternatively, you can have two people, 2 moments, you can build it too. So I was about to say, hey, you guys, see the world differently. And then you made a statement that data is subsumed by AI. Can you just say more about it?
Yeah. I basically meant that the biggest use case of data has been analytics. An executive or a manager, whoever says, "Oh, I need to get this view. Like, how's my campaign performing? How's my, supply chain working? How is revenue getting collected or earned and all that stuff, right?" And those questions would drive the data use cases, and those questions would usually lead to somebody to go build a dashboard. And analytics, therefore, was the number one use case in an enterprise. The number one reason people were building all this data infrastructure, the warehouse, the Snowflake, the Databricks, the Tableaus, Power BIs, all of that was being done to help answer that question for the executives and managers and help run business better. But that use case is getting subsumed within AI. By that, I mean that analytics used to be two things, right? One is how analytics is getting created and used. I'll get to that, but also why we approach the problem in a certain way. So we approach the problem saying that here's a business question. Let's understand what data could help serve that business question. Let's now build a dashboard or some sort of visualization that people can use on a day-to-day basis and run the business, right? That's kind of the direction that we went in. So the questions drove the data use cases. What is happening now with AI is a lot of like what if and discovery kind of things become possible. So instead of feeding very specific data to a dashboard, you bring all of the data of all types with its knowledge base, with its documentation available to AI. And now you can start asking the same analytical questions to an AI model, by the way. And we know that AI models can generate the SQL query, and that from a SQL query, that visualization is straightforward. So I feel like, okay, analytical tools are gonna get eaten up by AI as it is. Okay, not that hard to make that leap. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's what a dashboard would do. Run a SQL query, give you a visualization. You can automate much of that just by asking a question.
Basically,
But now what you Yeah.
Basically, you're saying that not just improve the dashboard. Improving the dashboard is incremental, right? That's kind
Yeah.
of what you're saying. Okay, please.
Yeah. But now the purpose of the dashboard was to give you insights, and insights were knowledge that people have. A lot of that knowledge we try to document in a company. Hey, write a wiki page, write a document, make a presentation. All of that you can feed to AI as well. So one is immediately your ability to ask questions and get insights served by AI improves significantly. Anyways, generative AI models are really good at synthesizing information and presenting it succinctly, right? But what also happens is a new pattern emerges where you're not thinking ahead of time. What do I need from a business? Okay, now let me ask for the dashboard. Now somebody will go back for a week and I'll get a dashboard. Now you're interactively sort of doing that. And a lot of like questions can start coming up from that interaction. It's a way you have with a human, except that this machine has a lot of data. So I feel like the primary use case of data being analytics use cases, dashboards, all of that stuff is going to get eaten up by AI, because AI can not only be pointed to that data, it can also be pointed to the documents that give a lot of that knowledge around the data. It can build, or you can build a much better semantic layer on the data. With this means this. This means that this table does this information, stuff like that, and also feed that to AI. So that actually, I feel like, allows AI to really take over that one big use case. So that's what I mean by saying that when we are building a data platform, we're making data ready, when we're building that knowledge around the data and stitching it all together, you're primarily serving AI as the use case. AI used to be a fringe use case. AI used to be like 10% of the use case in the market, and it was aspirational. I think it's now become central.
Interesting. So when you say data is subsumed by AI or AI taking over data, what you're really talking about is insights taking over the dashboard, right? Because dashboard is still a means to an end.
Correct.
That's very interesting. And then,
AI, yeah. So,
mm,
yeah.
go
I
ahead.
just want to clarify, AI taking over all the use cases of data. And then the use cases of data used to be, I get this insight, and then somebody has to go somewhere in some system and take some action.
Mm,
Hey, let's increase the price of this product. Let's
mm,
order more items in the inventory because we are running low, whatever that be. Those actions can also be driven by AI. So it's kind of like taking over all that, the purpose, or significant part of the purpose,
yeah.
in that sense. Yeah.
Again, using the phrase means to an end, everything is
Yeah.
means, the end is, outcome, right? The outcome is
Yes.
driven by the actions. That's actually very good. Okay, cool. Excel?
Yeah, so first, looking forward, I'm curious. We have someone wondering as to what the future will look like, perhaps as AI develops, and what if models become capable of sort of dealing with their data more independently themselves. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, from a future perspective, we see a lot more, I would say, automation in different ways in which we work within the enterprise. But I would also say that, sorry, there's some audio glitch at my end. But I would also say that we are still at a point where there are a complex set of problems or workflows within an enterprise that are extremely hard to still automate and simplify. So I think the way I think about this is, it took us at least 10, 15 years of work to get cars close to self-driving. And that's a function that a human being can learn in 2 weeks at a 16, 18-year-old age. Think about a function like running procurement at a big CPG company. That's something that takes a college grad 3 to 4 months to learn, and still a lot of fine tuning to get really good at. So there are tasks that are a lot more complicated. They may seem simple from the outside. What's the big deal? You see what item is needed, you go order it. No, it's extremely complicated. All the conditions, the issues, the compliances, the risks, many things have to go in. So I think the one thing that I feel is that we often underestimate the complexity of some of the tasks, especially unless it's the person doing the task. Somebody asked me, can AI take over the ledger of a company? I'm like, not easy. You rely on an accountant, and there is so much complexity in that, and there's so much that depends on it, including your filings and all of that stuff, your taxes. It's not that easy. So I think we are looking at more simplification, more automation, but I still think of AI as I'm trying to if I'm trying to build a bench with wood at my home, instead of, a hammer and a screwdriver, I have power tools to do that faster and better. But I still am the one who crafts the thing. And I still am the one who knows what good looks like. And therefore, when it comes back to AI, I always feel like people who understand what good looks like. What does a good blog look like? What does a good insight look like? What does a good process look like? What does good code look like? All of that, knowing the good is really important. And then AI is kind of there to sort of help you get to that faster and, iterate over the options in a much quicker way.
Okay, exactly. So it seems like the future AI will definitely have a significant role. But prior to it now becoming sort of the buzz, we have someone wondering, my understanding is 2016, Nexla was founded roughly a decade ago.
Yeah.
And so what was the catalyst at that point?
Yeah. The catalyst was at the time the growth in machine learning. So my history before starting Nexla was I had started a company in the mobile app ecosystem. I tried building a platform for that industry in 2009 when apps were new, ended up becoming one of the first monetization layers, one of the first ad servers for mobile app developers to use location as a key signal. We became part of a real-time bidding platform, one of the largest ad exchanges in the world, processing 300 billion records of data every day in 2014. When that company went public, I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing in advertising? I'm not that person. I love building hard technology solutions, right? I did that at NVIDIA, and that's what I want to do. And data was one of the hard problems we're solving. Interestingly, in that company, in that scale of data, we found that machine learning could work very effectively. Those were still early days of that. So I believe that, look, more people are going to need to work with data. I can see the path to that. I think more machine learning will happen. And the challenge really is getting to that data is so diverse, it's so complicated. We built a system for that. It was so hard to do. But if everybody wants to use data and every professional is going to use data in their day-to-day lives, that's not scalable. The underlying infrastructure is not there. And I'm the person who wants to build the means to the end and enable the people who are making the end use case. So I was like, okay, let's build those tools that will help people use data more easily, consume data more easily, independent of where the data is and how complex it is and how much variety is there. And the fact that AI has become the biggest consumer of data, as I said, is great for us in terms of the problem we are solving.
So how much today, in terms of a percentage or a ratio, if you could estimate, do you think can be automated with AI? And how much really requires the human in the loop?
As far as data processing?
Yeah, as far as data today.
Quite a bit can be automated, but again, AI sort of helps us sort of up-level things. For example, observing through a lot of data and understanding what might be the right quality rules to apply. Those were done by humans. You're building rules engines and stuff. Well, AI can do a pretty good job of getting a very good baseline, so help you improve quality there. For example, structurally, one of our big customers is DoorDash. They get data from CVS, Walgreens, Albertsons, every single store out there, right? Now, CVS can define a product in some fields, like, okay, item ID, product name, and so on. Walgreens may define it differently. Just, data across stores is organized differently. AI can do a pretty good job of helping us understand that this data structurally is very similar to this data structurally. And maybe they can be combined together in some way, or they can be analyzed together in some way. So those are things that people had to build either purpose-built machine learning for it. That could easily take 2 years to build a good machine learning model, to train that, to detect PII in data. But now you can do that a lot faster. So I think AI is definitely helping accelerate that. But look, we're also dealing with a lot more variety of data, a lot more scale of data. All of a sudden, every document is a data source, every video is a data source, right? So the variety is increasing and the complexity is increasing. So I think AI is great. Without AI, it would be hard to be even able to imagine that we can take on those challenges, right? So I think a lot of that becomes easier.
I'm also hearing, just so that I understood, you're saying there are a lot of complex problems. Some of the complex problems can be addressed by AI.
Correct.
But at the same time, there is another sort of the set of problem cannot be addressed by AI. And
Yes.
for that set of the problem, that's still close to infinite, meaning that just because you have AI, you have a much shorter list. You don't feel so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, and I'll give an example, right? Connectors that can connect to hundreds of systems and get data from there are still hard. Just yesterday, my team was telling me about one of our connectors to a well-known marketing system. And you make an API call, you get data. The API has a time field in it. The documentation says that the time field should be year, date, month format. But it actually takes the Unix timestamp, and there's no documentation that tells you that. But date doesn't work, timestamp works. So how will AI ever figure that out? There are things that you have to sometimes do and try and figure out. And every system, has its own uniqueness to how it has organized data and served that. So there's a scale at which, or a complexity at which you do need that human to be involved, to curate that, to build stuff. Dealing with large scale data at terabyte scale, trillions of records, those create software challenges, scaling challenges, deployment challenges, monitoring challenges that are still not managed by AI well. Maybe it will get done. I don't know the future. Who knows what will happen?
At
But
least
those are
now
still
you
hard
don't
challenges.
see,
Yeah,
from your point of view, you don't see, kind of a much shorter list on your to-do list, right?
yeah,
The
yeah.
to-do list is
Um,
always, much longer than you can handle.
I think we get to solve the problems that it would have taken us a lot longer to get to. But the aspirational state of like, hey, we want this magical experience of getting your data organized. I think it helps us get to that faster than if we were to just write everything by ourselves. Yeah.
Let me actually ask you, I don't know how many people in your company today, but whatever the amount, I wonder with and then without AI, like for, you probably applied AI to do a lot of work at engineering level, at a different level, right? So and then you're able to accomplish this much, right? I wonder
Yeah.
suddenly I take AI out, you would need what, 2x of the people to accomplish the same thing in the same time frame of 10x or 1.5x? I'm curious, what's your estimate and then why?
I think that instead of thinking about how many people we need, we're like, how much ambition can we get to? So we actually scaled up our goals rather
Ambition.
than,
I heard that
yeah,
loud and clear. I'm
yeah,
just saying that for the same amount of the work for a
for the same
second.
amount. Um, um, I think that yeah, at least 60% efficiency improvement. Um, the other pattern that I'll tell you, how, and you probably heard this from people as well, is that as I said, you need people who know what good looks like. So it has actually made it really important to have the right level of people with experience, to have that good judgment to it. So AI is like a tool, it's like a knife. The best chef will make the best outcome out of it, but the novice may cut their fingers with that. So it has both sides to it, I would say. Okay.
Interesting. So basically, you are seeing two things. One is, your ambition is much higher than before, and the AI made that possible. The other thing is, the efficiency wise, you see 60%. How do you capture that value? Meaning that has your product release cycle shrinked, or same release cycle, you are able to see 1.6, x of the features. How do you see it in real world?
Yeah, I mean, we built a completely new product with a completely new approach to working with data, entirely conversational. It's pre-launch, and that was done in just 3 months. It wouldn't have been possible to do
When did
that.
it happen?
Uh, it's happening right now,
I
and
see.
we've been working on that. So things.
I'm just curious, what's your AI coding agent of choice? There are so many of them. What's your choice?
I have to ask my team, and they've switched their opinion so many times in the last 6 months from
That happens. That
cursor
happens a lot.
to,
It
yeah,
may
I
not
think
be
it's
cursor, basically, you're saying.
cloud code right now with some people, at least I know. Yeah,
Yeah. That's very interesting. Okay,
yeah.
this is actually, especially for, very interesting to hear, basically you rewrote your kind of the core product in 3 months, which
Not
probably,
the a new way to working with stuff in 3 months. But I would certainly say that when it comes to rewriting the code or redoing a lot of that stuff, I think the friction still exists in not in the writing the code itself, is a lot of the post in the complete SDLC, I would say, side of things. And I see more companies coming up with automation and capabilities on that front as well. So it's promising. Code testing is getting more automated. I see deployment, tools getting better, testing and all that stuff. Yeah.
right. I have one more question, but before that,
Yeah.
Axel, do you have anything else on your side?
Yeah, I was just really curious how you balance the sort of the trade-off between the speed and then keeping it fully reliable as you process data?
Yeah, I think it is a challenge. A lot of thought process going more into testing, I would say. I think it has also been a cultural shift in some ways. We've seen, if you've seen the article about how Cloud Code team built Cloud Code itself and the pace at which they were able to rebuild and release. And sometimes we read that stuff and say, oh, wow, that is possible. So I think in many ways, culturally, what it has done to us, and I'm sure to everybody, is what we thought is the right level of output and what is possible, that bar has been moving, and we're learning from everybody on that front. So lot has changed. Yeah.
Wow. So that's a very strong statement, right? What's possible is, totally changed,
Yeah.
because of the
Yeah.
coding agent, because of AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, I
as
give people an example that, until the first person did the 4-minute mile, people thought it's impossible. And when the first person did it, after that, the second person happened very soon. And then now it's like many people have done that. But it sort of was a big unlock in people's brain that that is even possible. And I think that's kind of what's happening with some of the work in, our space in terms of coding, development, all of that stuff is the big unlock is happening.
interesting, interesting. Um, my kind of last set of question is more or less, for how your engineers deal with this AI. Do they have anxiety? Are they excited? But that's relatively less important. But what's your advice to them, or what's your advice to people, professionals who sometimes some people worry, hey, all the software engineers will be eliminated. That's of course very extreme, right? The other extreme is no, I mean, nothing is going to happen. So how do you think about it? What's your advice?
I would say reality always sort of lies in between. I don't think all the jobs will go away, but Howie, you and I have kids here in high school, and we think about that question even from that perspective. Is like, what will they do in like 10 years from now? It's a little bit hard to tell. And I think same thing happens with engineers, and our engineers feel like, hey, they're working on a problem which is so close and relevant, but there are people working on stuff that are not as relevant anymore. Those problems got solved overnight by AI, and building a lot of things before has become less relevant, right? So I do think that in reality we still want people who know what, as I said, what good looks like, and we still want people who can get stuff done. I'm running a startup, and we all know how hard it is to get work done. You may have a lot of plans, and then it's so hard to get to deliver to that. And when you build a team, and when you build a company, or any team for that matter, you realize that in a team of maybe 20 people, you suddenly see the ones that rise up, and you say, I can trust this person. Anything I give to this person will get done. And I think there's a human ability and resilience and strength and promise that is there that we all need for any work to get done. I think that will never go away. So I think for each one of us, it's not just for engineers, for each one of us, for everybody's job, even my job, right? I feel like we all have to really think from that perspective. Are we able to take responsibility, deliver value, work through it, and bring that promise to life that we all make? It's like, hey, I have a responsibility to do, right? So that will
Yeah,
matter
like you
always.
said, this is a kind of a pretty profound question. Both you and I, have kids, in the high school at the right season for us to think about it. Well, what's the impact of AI? We
Yeah.
have Axel. He's actually applying college right now as we speak. What's your, other than resilience, those things, any other tips you have for him?
Yeah, I think when I went to college, I finished high school in 1995. And for me, it was a no-brainer. I want to go study computer science and learn how to program systems, right? Now it's not that obvious. That maybe the most interesting thing. I think that the key thing for that front is be AI native, learn how to use these tools. It is going to be part of our life, and that itself is a skill. I think that how to take advantage of these is certainly a thing to have. I think the other sort of aspect which I learned, I was all about technology, engineering, and all of that stuff as a young person. And then over time, as you build a company and you do all this stuff, you realize that communication, people, relationships, culture building. There are many aspects of how the world works. That is not like programming. That's very hard. It takes a lot of good judgment, intuition, and all of that to build. So I'm like, go to college, keep a wide horizon, take all sorts of subjects. You could study sociology and psychology or history and all of that stuff, because every element of the things that we learn, along with whatever core math, economics, biology, whatever you do, art, all of that together makes us as a packaged entity. So I would say that we'll all find out what it does. The best thing as a human being can do is to stay optimistic and learn. And I think there's nothing that beats a smart person with willingness to get stuff done.
Hey, Saket, thank you for coming to the show. You are the only guest on your show so far to say college still matters. No, I'm kidding. You are not the only one. You're not the only one. But it is a controversial topic still. But if I summarize what you have said, right, the having, have a good taste, having a good judgment still matters, right? Resilience matters. Be, AI native. And AI makes, the, average free, but, how to, but you can have high ambition, right? As a company, as a founder, at this point, you are not running short of the to-do things just because of AI. You actually, the list may even get, bigger and bigger because, your ambition is, higher and higher. So that's kind of a very good to hear, for people like Axel, because when he, whether, joins the college or goes to the workforce, he wanted to see more interesting things rather than, hey, we run out of challenges, right? But you are telling him that, no, 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 don't worry. There will be, at least with what you see, you don't see we humans run out of challenges.
No, not at all. I think knowledge matters.
Knowledge matters, and the college still matters, according to
Knowledge
Saket.
still matters. Yeah.
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
coming to the
Thank you.
show, and have a nice weekend to everyone.
See you.
Thank you, Howie. Thank you, Axel, for having me.
It's been a
It's a
pleasure.
pleasure.